Holy Minton just asked you, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Asking the big questions there, Holly. Okay. I was considering also, this was aside from the prosthesis, like working on, because I found that that's also very, like, no one wants to touch it within the private practice scene or almost anywhere because it's very like case by case basis and there's no true formula out there that can, I guess, completely solve it or vanquish it. And I thought that maybe going back and also doing another degree in psychology or something like that and bringing that knowledge into my physio practice as well. Because if the psychology is not there, your recovery prognosis for a patient's going to be vastly different. So the two tie hand in hand, and I was thinking potentially along there
Okay.
or along the the prosthesis route. Those are probably my two areas I see maybe in 5 years. I'm not, yeah.
Cool. Did you catch all that, Holy Minty? So now that's a good question. I think it's a good question. Most mentors even ask their mentees, going, "What do you aim?" And then when they kind of don't have a time frame, then we kind of make you go, "Oh, okay. 10 years from now, where do you want to be?" And of course, 10 years is a long time, and most people don't end up exactly where they said they think they are in 10 years. But the fact that you have a plan or a goal is what's more important. So you actually have something you're working towards. And if that takes you to a different branch or path, then great. But if you didn't have a plan, you wouldn't have gone that way. It cut. Yeah, sorry. I realized I was changing my screen to the so Seaton, you can't see this, but I changed my screen to the text boxes. So
Okay.
it cut off you just then because my computer's still a potato. Coley Minch said, sorry, cut out after the rare cases part.
Hmm?
I think that was the beginning of what you were saying, right? About prosthetics and everything.
The I think it's the prosthetic or the chronic pain part. I think
Okay.
maybe because chronic pain. What I was saying, Holly, is that it's very complicated and there's no real, especially with chronic pain, there's no cookie cutter way about it because everyone's brain is wired slightly differently. Everyone's neurological makeup is very unique. It's like a signature. So what may work for one person's not necessarily going to work for the next. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of people currently within both private and public that either try to avoid that case and pass it on, pass it on, pass it on, just kick the ball. And there's not many areas out there that kind of give that care that they need, sort of thing. And tying it together with psychology, I think, would be quite powerful because the mind and body interlinked. If you're not addressing the psychological aspect as well, their prognosis is just going to rebound. They're going to constantly be coming back. It's just going to be a repeating pattern.
Yeah, that's great. Do you know what's so cool about this interview? Like the meta behind, us just chatting and maybe helping the viewers is that technically the conversations we're having now and even the questions that the viewers are asking is basically what a mentorship will be like to helping you work
Mm.
out where you want to go. So if I was to bounce off what you said about chronic pain, yeah, so I'm guessing, or hopefully you've heard of things such as chronic pain clinics exist.
Mm-hmm.
And you might not necessarily have to be a psychologist to be a physio in a multidisciplinary team, which seems like what you want to do. And I do know a bunch of people like Dr. Andrew Lever, who's really, really good with this chronic pain stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
another physiotherapist called Dr. Tanya Gardiner. I know them quite well. I could go, look, there's this guy called Seaton that really wants to know more. I could link you up with that. And they can help you because I'm not an expert in that area, but I know that they'll be able to tell you, should you do a psychology degree or can you learn the basics of the skills and just be just a physio
Mm-hmm.
inverted commas, and still achieve the kind of the talk side of things as well as the physical side of things in your therapy management to help with the chronic pain patients. So yeah, and then the prosthesis stuff. I mean, you've done better than me. You have a good connection in Liverpool, so you can go that way. Um,
Mm.
Good. So we'll leave it at that. Holy Minton said that they like your answers, so with smiley
Thank you.
face. Ashley, good to have you here. You asked, what advice would you give to a Gen 1 student heading into second sem? He's had a very similar, because I know who you are actually. You've had a similar experience to you in first sem.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you touched on a bit, but yeah, let's repeat that because
Okay.
repetition helps with learning.
I would say it's all about balance. So find out what kind of learner you are and optimize how you learn best. That's probably one of the most important points to kind of strike that work-life balance as a student. So balance between your study, your work, your hobbies, your social, and very important, your sleep schedule as well, which I am guilty of still working on as well. That element, and create a clear goal of what you want to achieve and what success looks like for you. So going into your second sem, what kind of student do you want to be? I understand that everyone wants to be the best, but what kind of student or what does success look for you, like for you? Because it's very specific to the person. Success for one person might be, oh, you want to be number one student, or success for you might be, oh, I can get the work done and I can also go out to a friend's birthday party or something like that. So everyone's success is different and just try to narrow down what that is. And also creating like a time schedule and breaking down tasks into smaller goals. So remembering to include what you enjoy doing in there as well. And again, finding that personal balance. So putting in that time to revise a certain amount of content that you find might be a bit trickier. Uh, Working out where like certain things will click with you easier in the course, I think. So depending on your background, I'm not sure what your bachelor's or undergrad degree was in. Um, some things will come easier to you, while other concepts will take a bit more time. So kind of tailoring your study around that and acknowledging that, okay, my strengths are here, I can pick this up fairly easily. And there's other parts that are like, oh, that's a bit tricky. So putting in a bit more time into those areas. Other tips would also be, besides making like good close-knit friends within the uni, try to experiment around with study groups. I know it's a bit tricky with COVID, but I found a lot of value with finding some small study groups where you could bounce ideas off each other. You could try to approach situations differently. So I know personally when we were doing the like the in-person physiotherapy assessments for different tasks, I would see that my friends would manually handle the patient very differently to how I would, and I would be like, wow, completely didn't think of that. Like that's a very interesting way of approaching it. That helps quite a lot as well. What's going on? Oh, internet keeps cutting out. Could start over again. Would
Oh,
you
it's
to
okay. It's
answer?
just another
All good?
question. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll feed that to you in a second. But
What
yeah,
other
I
parts?
think you were saying about yeah, study groups can work. Might be a bit trickier in COVID, but actually bouncing off that, uh, my impression is that almost every cohort in the physiotherapy degrees have some sort of like Facebook group for the year. Did you have one?
Yeah.
And it did was
Uh,
that effective? Did people kind of help each other in that, or was it just memes and
I'd
stuff? Or
That's true. You have to be very mindful of your study group as well, because I feel if you have too many people, it can get out of hand as well, because it's very hard to keep everyone on the same page and it's very easy to get sidetracked. So you kind of have to try to strike that balance. I found, at least for me personally, anything between 3 to 5 people, anything greater than five, and it's absolutely impossible, I found.
hmm,
3 people is a good middle ground because you can kind of all help each other and still hold each other accountable. So like, you're it's more task orientated as well, depending on the personalities of the people that you have in the study groups as well. But it's much more manageable that way.
yeah,
Um, Another aspect would be keeping contact with your lecturers. So know that like they have after hours as well. And if you have any other questions or concepts that you didn't understand, ask them. So show initiative by working on the problem in your own time. So that shows them that you've tried your best to work out up to what point does the concept make sense to you, and what point does it start to kind of go off track and you're not too sure where it is. Because that initiative shows that you've put in the work, you know roughly where you are in this space of understanding the concept, and can help them narrow down and specifically target what your question is a bit better, I found at least. What other part? Any other parts? I think that's mainly it.
yeah. No,
Just main
I
tips.
definitely agree. And one thing that maybe I've noticed as an educator is that for the year that started this year, um, where it's been COVID, it's I mean, my guess is that it's been harder for you to mingle with your peers because for two factors. One is that we don't have lectures face to face, so you don't get to see like a whole bunch of people all together physically that might bounce conversations, or randomly sit next to someone or behind them in a row that at least might prompt you to say hi. And with the way that the tutorials are set, where it's really packed in the schedule these days. There used to be times where people that the class is over, the rooms are open because there's tons of rooms in the old place we had, and people just hung around. And I had to kind of go, just letting you know, I'm going to close the door. Just make sure you keep the place fine. But yeah, you don't get as much as that. So I think there's an inherent difference in the culture, which has made it trickier. So that's why I was thinking, is there a Facebook group, or is there some way that they can connect with you guys can connect with each other and get this going? Because it's the collegial motivation that can be a big drive here. And the last thing, as you said, is contact your lecturers, ask them questions. And yes, we try, and it's also very hard to ask them questions, again, with the structure of the classes being back to back. But that's why we keep emphasizing and hope that our students keep using the discussion boards, because that's what they're designed for. And I think what you said, Seaton, is correct, where when you do ask your question, have a think about it first, even suggest what you're thinking as your answer to the question. So then at least it hopefully helps us educators know where you're coming from at the moment with the idea, and then at least can give you a more rounded answer to bounce off what you're already thinking. Plus it shows your initiative. So we might leave that question there. Hopefully that answers it, Ashley. Almond Tofu said, a question for you as well. If you could start over again, what would you do differently? And he also has someone else has redeemed a stretch, so I'll start stretching while you talk.
Okay, what would I do differently? I'd probably work a bit more on, like, I can give you practical advice, or I can give you a bit more, like, it's not abstract advice, but it's just like, I guess, life advice with the course. Like, let's say practical advice that I'd change is maybe like revising some content, like let's say doing more on the anatomy side of things, just so when you go into your clinical placements, you don't need to spend that extra time worrying about, oh crap, I've forgotten what this muscle group does or what that does. It's already in your back pocket, you've got it, you're ready to go. I would say that's probably the more practical side of things. More abstract side of things, I guess, also maybe because you've practiced it that much, you have a bit more confidence with yourself as well, because you've constantly put in the time, you put in the work. Like, you won't be thrown off as much when it comes to that. And also having like a bit of a routine or time schedule when it comes to like, okay, I'm going to set aside, let's say, an hour and a half or 2 hours a day. This is going to be my investment into my future career as a physiotherapist. I'm going to work on, like, okay, today I'm going to learn more about the shoulder. And like, let's say your task might be, okay, let's say Frisian shoulder syndrome. 2 hours into that. What's the pathophys like? What's the treatments like? What's the time frames like? What's the recovery, diagnosis, prognosis like? Just setting aside small tasks and then learning, like going to depth with it. So you feel confident in what you know and understand in that area. So when it comes up in clinic, you're like, yes, I've put in my time in this. I know what I'm doing here. So establishing that confidence with what you know, I would say that's what I'd mainly change if I were to go back. Like just setting aside a little bit of time, investing here and there. And I know that everyone's time schedule would be slightly different. Your commitments would be different to the next. Just work out something that works best for you. So what time of day do you have available, and what time of day are you most alert? So working that out. Everyone's is slightly different. Like some people love smashing out in the morning. Other people, maybe their focus is higher in the afternoon or at nighttime. So that all varies from person to person.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm definitely not a morning person. I am. My prime time is 6 to 7. That's when I've usually ranked up in my games as well, and I play at that time. But And Season, you should just take over this whole thing. Like you're killing it.
Nah.
So did you want to add the life advice as well? I mean, you did
Uh,
offer that too.
the life advice is it also comes back to the whole balance idea where you really like find that balance and find that time to look after yourself and to like how do I say this? Find the time to look after yourself and establish that strong social connection or network to like fall back on. So if you are feeling, overwhelmed with clinical studies, you can talk to other students, you can relate to them, you can offload, you can talk about any kind of experiences that you had. There's going to be some that are confronting, there's going to be funny moments, there's going to be all kinds of moments. So just having that connection there and to, yeah, just talk about your experiences, that always helps to mentally reset you that you're not alone, that what you're going through, everyone else is going through as well, even though they may not be talking about it. I would say that's pretty valuable.
Hmm. All right, we've got one more question at the moment by Holy Minty saying, "How would you define ethical healthcare?" I think it's probably addressed to both of us, but I would love for you to try and answer this one first. And not try, I think you can answer it. But I would like to see how you tackle that question, how you think.
Ethical healthcare. Okay. Ethical healthcare, the way I see it at least, is it kind of depends on your moral compass that you kind of navigate the world with. So seeing what's best for the patient and what's like how does that tie in with everyone as a whole? So like a personal experience that I had when I was talking with a friend of mine that was in hospital, one of his patients was in inpatient and ended up passing away. But leading up to that, like he had the decision to make where the patient's wishes was to pass away at home. But the patient's son was very reluctant for that and thought that, oh, she can keep on fighting, she can keep on going through, she needs to stay in the hospital. So it was very like difficult to say like who calls the shots of like do we take the patient back home to like fulfill their wish and like that's what they wanted to do, right? But the son wants her to keep on fighting and maybe have a chance to stay alive. It's a very gray area. That's the thing with a lot of ethical dilemmas. Like there's no tried and true way to go about it. All you can do is kind of take into consideration as many aspects as you can and also like talk it out with other people. Communication is very important in that sense because what you see, maybe someone else doesn't see and vice versa. So making sure that other people are on board of what you're thinking, where they're thinking, where it should ultimately lead. Like an idealist, for instance, might say like, oh yeah, we should take the patient home. That's what they want. But then once the patient passes, that might really annoy or irritate the son. And then the son might cause some legal disputes or some other potential problem down the track. Or on the other end of things, if you're considering keeping the patient there, then like maybe you feel really guilty that you could have done something that you otherwise couldn't. Like you could have taken or maybe try to organize something for the patient to go back home. But ultimately, like you're still one piece of the puzzle in the healthcare network, and
Hmm.
like you still have to humble yourself to that if that makes any sense. Like yeah, it's just very very complex. Like I can't give a specific answer with that. I hope that brought to light a little bit about it. I'll let Kevin you give it a go.
Yeah. I wasn't expecting you to take it that way. You literally just dropped the bombshell. That's a tricky question about what the patient wants, what the son wants, and there's a lot of factors such as what is possible or what looks like is possible and what isn't. You might have patients that really want to go home, but you know that they can't
Mm.
for X, Y, and Z, or they will not live long if they do go home. In the end, like I think you're right. This is where that group decision is really important because luckily, as physiotherapists, we're not usually at the top of the chain to decide whether or not like what to do with that. It's kind of falls on the medical team as well. So yeah, my wife tells me all these different tricky ones, and then I really don't know how she does it. I was hoping that you were going to go the more easier route, which is more like, do you overcharge your patients? How many patients
Oh,
do you
yeah.
see? And I think that the answer to this is I mean, the first way, and also to answer your other question, and I think you kind of touched on it, is in the end, I mean, ethics is a very philosophical question. You do get taught formally in many different courses, but I think in the end, it comes down to valuing like humans as very very important and very very equal with each other. So you can't kind of just go, this person's opinion is more important than someone else's, or this life is more valued than the other, or you're actually more important than someone else. If you kind of is asking, you're not hijacking the Q&A, that's fine. You mentioned, so to you, Seaton, you mentioned that you're interested in different treatments. What if your colleague has a different opinion and disagrees with you? Sounds like an interview question here. Yeah, I have heard. Yeah, so yeah, what if you have a way of doing things and you're working in a new practice and your colleague doesn't agree?
Doesn't agree. Okay. You'd have so. Well, also, I'm just trying to think this one through. I'd probably have like a mini discussion with them as to, I just want to see what their clinical reasoning's like with their treatment and how sound that theory is. Like, understand, let's say if I was due in a certain practice, I wouldn't necessarily like challenge straight off the bat, like, oh, I don't think that this is right. This is the only way it can be treated. Like, that's, I think, probably more arrogant than anything, because there's plenty of different ways to treat something. Probably try to be humble in the fact that there's a lot of different ways to treat it. There's not just one way to like go about something. So really have that open discussion with them. Ask them why is it that you think that this is the best way to treat a patient with this? So get them to try to explain it to a level that hopefully does answer your question. And if there's other physios there that also use a similar thing, see what their take is. See if like they think that this is truly the best way, or what other methods have they thought to like circumvent it or adjust it or tailor it to certain other patients. See how that stacks up. And also kind of considering like how much experience they have as well. That also ties into it as well. But yeah, if they have a different opinion and disagree with you, that's, if anything, I think I see that as a learning opportunity. Like, it's good to have different treatment options in my head, because it's like, it's not an echo chamber that way. Like, if you're in a private practice or if you're in any type of physio field, if everyone's doing the same thing, it's good in the sense that it's congruent. Like, there's less likelihood that something's going to be missed, or if like one physio is not there someday, someone else can pick up and then pick up straight where they left off. So that's where the system is brilliant. But where the system's not so good is if there is a problem, it's also going to be a carry-on error. So I'd say the main thing is kind of like having that humility to think that there is other ways to also go about things and see how that stacks up, and maybe doing your own side research to see what the literature says if you're very, very keen on the area. But yeah, I'd say just kind of taking it in your stride and see it as a learning opportunity, even though sometimes like some clinical educators or some people be very abrasive with how they want things done. But yeah, just try to keep calm and carry on with it.
Yeah, I think you. Well, let's see if Holy Minty likes that question. I think Holy Minty is a what do you call it? Someone who's been working for some time, so probably more like a colleague or employer than a student in this conversation, based on the questions he's been asking, or she's been asking. But I think I know who you are. But yeah, no, I think particularly at the end there, I think the question. What you need to realize in that question is that it's a particular scenario in perhaps physiotherapy, but really it comes down to just conflict and idea resolution in all fields. You could even apply what you kind of said to conversations I might have with my wife in deciding what color the curtain should be. So, yeah, I think there's a sense of humility, talking it through. I guess what's not in the question there is, and you did kind of bring it up in your answer, is there a power dynamic or is there a respectfulness? So if this is a clinical educator or your boss that's been practicing for 20 years, then I guess we should lean to the side of that they might be more likely to be right based on their experience. So yeah, coming with that approach, and of course if you really don't think they're right, then yes, that's where you consult and bring evidence, or it will be different as well. Like for example, there could be scenarios where you are seeing someone else's patient because they're going on a week holiday. So, Mr. So-and-so, I've been doing this treatment as handover of care. Can you continue with this? And you might not agree that this has been the right thing altogether, but it might not be great for the patient to then suddenly change things, or to go, well, actually, my colleague, I don't agree with what they're doing, so we're going to do this instead. So that wasn't in the question, but I think these are situations that that could be behind the question when someone asks you this. Yeah. So, well, you look like you passed by Holy Minty. So that's good. Cool. Now, any other question? I think Almond Tofu, you were the one that was asking through Discord about how did I even get into esports physiotherapy, or what even sparked the interest? Is that still a question that you're still wanting to ask, or did you kind of get it answered elsewhere through a video I might have shown or something like that? Are you still in the chat? This is where he's probably going, oh, hang on, he's talking to me. Oh, better type something. Yes, the 2 exclamation marks. There he is. And I think if no one's got things for Seaton, let me know if you just want to run off Seaton if you got, because it is getting close to 6. And I'm happy to keep going. It's just that I never was expecting this to go this long. It's been definitely enjoyable on my side. We can probably do this more as well. But let's answer Almond Tofu. I'll answer Almond Tofu's question. Okay, I'll tell you I'll tell you the funny way how it started. So. I never told you this, Seaton, have I? How I came to the idea that you could be a physio for video gamers. Well, the background is I've been playing video games all my life. In my bio, I picked up a Game Boy Red. It's actually, I can get it. It's still sitting on my shelf here. Game Boy Red. Anyway, when I was 5 years old, played games since, like the games I mentioned. But around the time when I was studying physiotherapy, so this is like between the years of 2009 and 13, this is when Twitch, this platform we're talking on, started becoming a thing. And back then the biggest esport was Dota 2, and they've just had their first tournament called the International. Now it's at the International 10, which is only a prize pool of $40 million. Back then it was only a couple million. But anyway, it was super hype. So hype that the games are running during lecture time. Oh, you can see where the story is coming now. And during my physiotherapy lectures, I was just watching this Dota 2 tournament, and I'm hopefully my lecturers, well, I work with them now, but I haven't told them the story, but hopefully they can forgive me. But wasn't paying attention much. I was the annoying student that kind of went to my friend Rex at the time, who's also a great guy. What was this lecture about? Can I steal your notes? I was that guy because I was watching the stream. But anyway, during the stream, if you ever watch tournaments now, they sometimes cut to like this cool side view of the 5 people playing their computer games, and like you can see them like all this or like this, all sorts of weird stuff. And I'm like in my physio lecture going, neck pain, shoulder pain. What about these guys? so I'm like thinking, it's gonna be soon where these people that you see making money on the screen actually have their careers going because they're running into issues. So that was the kind of the propagation. And I told Rex back then, it's like, imagine if I could be like a sports physio, but for like these people. And he kind of brushed it off. So that idea kind of disappeared and it sat in my mind for years. But I always followed a group called 1HP, which is this little icon that you can see on the top right it's just spinning. They've been doing this in America, like kind of being physios interested in helping people basically with the same idea as I had, but everything is in America, so they had the access to it. They've been doing it for 5 years or so, like since 2016. And then when I was doing my PhD, like I said earlier, I was focused on that topic, and I was still playing games. But as soon as I got close to finishing it, I was like going, where do I want to go next? And it kind of sparked to me that actually I do have this creative freedom to do what I want in terms of research, in terms of what I want to do clinically. All right, why not take a bite, send an email to this group. And so I emailed this lovely lady called Kate McGee, thinking that maybe I'll be cold-shouldered. But no, she replied, I think maybe a day or two later. And then we started talking through Discord, as gamers do, which is like their version of Skype. Their version of Skype or Zoom, for those who don't know what Discord is. And pretty much bounced ideas. That she was really interested in the fact that I had a research background and we could do some research in it. I also thought that, as an Australian, I'm probably the only person that has thought of esports at the time, and go, okay, well, why not we try and get something started there as well. So that was kind of in August last year, and it's been bubbling along, and now you see things like 2 publications, one's been published, one's maybe coming to be published soon, one's in the works. Got an APA in Motion magazine, and that was kind of me also just making sure that when I put in APA in Motion, is there anyone else in Australia actually thinking along the lines like, surely I can't be the only one, because I'm like 5 years behind on what I thought I could do at that point in time. Turns out there's at most 2 other people, but they're only had some thoughts of it, and not as in-depth as myself, I would say. Just not to discredit them, but just by the way I was comparing them to the Americans I've been working with. So in some sense, I'm leading this all in an interesting way. And I don't know, I need ideas on exactly how to do it. I've reached out to different esports orgs. So if you follow League of Legends, the current LCO circuit, you hear Pentanet, Chiefs, Dire Wars, Mammoth, like those teams. I kind of suss my way through ESL Australia to be like a name there to go, look, there is some sort of physio out there that kind of knows what gamers go through. So if there are problems, they come to me. And actually, I thought it was at that point in time going, maybe it will just bubble and maybe 2 years later it'll come back to me. But no, it took a couple of weeks and a conversation happened again, etc., etc. So I guess long story short, this is kind of how networking works, where you throw your feelers out there, and a lot of the times you might feel like there was no fruit, but sometimes you get surprised where a seed you've thrown out actually somehow grows in on concrete, and then sometimes the seed you throw on fertilized soil doesn't grow and you get disappointed, but if you throw enough seeds, some things will pop up. So I guess that's how it all worked. Seaton, are you still there, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw you say
listening.
Okay. I thought I just became solo streaming again. Anyway, but that's I guess that's the main gist of it. And I could go into more detail, but I didn't want to go even longer than I just rambled on. Yeah, so I think we're kind of coming to a lull now. So again, Seaton, anything else? Anything from chat? I think the next question often is, what do you actually do when you see gamers? Possible question. Have I told you that at all, Seaton?
Nope, brand new to me.
Yeah, so Without giving all the tricks away, but basically, it's if you apply what you learn in MSc or MS4 and your sports physiotherapy, you just got to remember a few things. So you've got to remember what are the sporting demands that happen in esports. So you've got competition scheduling, you've got practice or scrims is what the lingo is. You've got the team dynamics that you got to bounce around. You got to liaise with the coaches and the organization. So you still apply a lot of what you know in sports physiotherapy to esports, because the basics of it being organizations with structures versus another structure, and people happen to enjoy watching whatever that is, be it tennis, soccer, or whatever. You got to deal with that. And then you've got the physical demands, which is obviously where the physiotherapists are important in. So no, you're not running marathons or you're not kicking a ball really hard, but if you break down the activity what an proper professional gamer plays, so again, for those who don't know the field well, it's not playing Candy Crush, it's not playing Animal Crossing that really would probably get people into trouble. It's playing the intense games like first-person shooters, MOBAs, etc., where if you took a top-down cam, you could really see how much they're moving their arms. And the way I kind of introduce that idea to someone who's completely foreign to this is imagine a musician, particularly a violinist. Violinists get tons of issues with both the bowing arm and the fact that they have to kind of crook their hand like this to reach the notes. And yeah, there's physiotherapy for that, because they've got demands on performing, they've got demands on practicing so they can perform, and it's their livelihood. So you just apply that concept as well. So what does it look like in gamers? Well, in gamers, we can look at what the mouse hand is doing, what the keyboard hand is doing. We can look at their neck posture in relation to the monitor, but that's kind of the ergonomic side and the biomechanics side. In the end, if they do have symptoms, then what is the structure? So you go back to your basics. So can you do a good assessment? Can you work out if it's a nerve issue? Is it a muscle issue? Is it a joint issue or a tendon issue? And we say this often because the media doesn't get it, it's not carpal tunnel, it's often a tendon issue. And how do you manage tendons? Well, it's all about what we know about optimal loading. Yep, so you don't want to do nothing where the muscle gets weaker and the tendon doesn't align, but you don't want them to keep overloading it where it gets worse. So you need to kind of put all the stuff that you just learned, what I said earlier, which is about their sports scheduling, the biomechanical demands, and all those factors into how would you rehab this tendon to the best of its ability. And that requires a lot more thinking if someone's in season versus out of season as well. So once you've kind of put all those things together, the rest is really easy. Like, how do you train wrist extension? You all know how to do wrist extension exercise. It's just how much of it, how heavy and how many reps you need to do. That's the tricky part. But that just comes with the understanding of the actual game and just schedule that someone has to go through. So yeah, I think that's basically it in a nutshell. And yeah, you could go more in depth, like different mice, different keyboards, different hand positions, etc. But the basics is what I just said. And technically, you can start working some of these things out on your own if you apply that to any activity.
Is there any protocol that exists for let's say the rehab for how you said reloading the tendon that's across the board for any type of tendinopathy? But would you have is there any research out there for MOBAs or FPS, a little protocol to help them reintroduce themselves back into let's say full-time schedule? Would you kind of ease off into it? So if they were playing 50 hours per week, you'd go 20 hours first, and 30, then 40, and you build up that way? Or is there any like smaller protocol that exists out there?
Yeah, well, tendon research is interesting because most of the tendon research has been done on the Achilles tendon and the patella tendon. And we have mostly applied our whole tendon theory just on these two tendons, where you can imagine a wrist tendon or a shoulder tendon might not necessarily be the same, won't be used in the same way as the patella tendon or the Achilles. For example, the rotator cuff is, they're stabilizers, right? While the quads and the calf are, well, one's more of an endurance muscle, calf, but obviously can have power, and the quads often is more of a power type of muscle. So it's a bit of extrapolation there, which will have its flaws, and we wish there was more research already on the protocols on, like, wrist tendons as a starting point, let alone the rehab protocol for a specific sport. And we don't even have that for specific sports much, let alone the whole debate where a lot of people still go, esports, that's not a sport. So in other words, we are going through lots of extrapolations from the tendon research to a specific gaming population, and this is something that all clinicians are doing anyway. There's no research paper on every single thing. It would be great to do that. Hence, that's why I still have my fingers in the research area, because that would be an amazing question to answer. But in the meantime, when we got someone in with issues right now, then we have to make a decision, some critical thinking based on what's around. So the answer to that is, with most tendons, isometrics are pretty good for pain relief, but in terms of what rehabs the tendon the most, there is no clear winner out of isometric, concentric, or eccentric. But usually with the tendons, you're not trying to do a massive, like, high rep and strength. So you're not going for something you can only do 12 times. You're usually looking for something a bit in the 20 to 30 range. Yeah. So, I mean, if all the esports professional players could just take on what I just said and do it for themselves, they don't need me. But of course, the reason why us professionals exist is that, yes, we do have this anatomical knowledge to diagnose exactly which tendon it is. Therefore, is it wrist flexion, ulnar deviation, or radial deviation, or something else that they need to do. And then when they do need to know in certain exercise, remember these professionals are busy. They've got a scrim schedule, they've got some tournament stress, so they often have psychologists as well, and these things eat up most of their time. But they have sponsorships, they might have to do promos. They say your organization gets sponsored by usually something that's food related, like a energy drink brand, then they're going to spend a whole day doing all that, and then they need someone actually to prompt them in their busy schedule that, have you been looking after yourself in this way or that. So that's where my role is quite important sometimes as well. Instead of being like the next week going, all right, so how was the scheduling? Did you remember to only play 5 games on average this week? No, I ended up playing 10 at once, 13 on the others, and no, I didn't do any of the okay. So that's how it is. And it's not to say that they are like not committed or not devoted or not smart. It's just that being a professional athlete or sports person requires a lot of demands. So yeah. So in the end, I think I guess as a closing point here is that you can see that I have kind of found my niche. Like all my 20 years of playing or more, 20 years of playing computer games and watching tournaments have taught me all this stuff I just said, because there's no course on this, so to speak, just yet on what you need to work on. So for those out there, you might have some particular interest. Maybe it's popular, maybe it's not. But that could potentially be where you will excel. So if I throw it to the musician, so maybe you play piano, and maybe you perform actually playing the piano. Well, you are probably quite equipped once you've got some good basics experience as a physio clinician to therefore help professional pianists with physical issues, because you know what they have to practice, how to play scales, what happens when you need to reach keys. Like, what that's like. I don't. I could try. I wouldn't be any better than probably you. So this is where hopefully some of the conversations we have on this stream, or maybe on a more personal level with some of you, if you want to reach out to me, is to kind of work out where you want to go and where you can put some of these interesting hobbies, so to speak, or interests into reality. Yeah, don't let your dreams become memes. But let your memes become dreams.
That's it.
All right. Well, I think we're good here. So everybody, thanks for popping by. Feel free to follow me on socials or on this channel if you want to perhaps pop in the next time something like this happens, or you just want to watch me play games or whatnot. You can obviously contact me through Discord or LinkedIn, university email, but this is technically not university stuff, so probably easier from the other channels. And Seaton, what's the best way for people to contact you if they wanted to?
Probably through my Discord as well.
Yeah.
I'm gonna chuck it up here.
Yeah, you can chuck it up in the chat now. Or you're also in my Discord channel too, right? So if they jump into mine, they'll be able to find yours and at you. You do have a LinkedIn, so I'm going to help you out here. You do have a LinkedIn, so they can contact you. Because up to you if you want to chuck your email out anywhere. But yeah, I guess anyone who's listening, this is why LinkedIn's pretty cool. Like when I first was exposed to LinkedIn, I thought, it's only for corporate stuff, like businesses and stuff. But for esports, it happens to be really good because a lot of the networking in esports happens through Twitter and through LinkedIn. So if you want to get into a field like mine, then it makes sense. But if you just even have a profile, it does two things for you. One is it makes you have a little bit of a presence, even if you don't have that many connections. But secondly, it will force you to make your own CV, because when you make a LinkedIn profile, it will tell you, where have you studied, what volunteering service have you done, any languages you speak. So it will force you to make your resume or your CV as well if you haven't done that already. Cool. Well, we got melodic space ellipse hashtag 2003 if you want to find him, or you can always find him through me or through our Discord channel. So we shall leave it there, and I don't know, I feel like playing games, but I don't know if I want to keep streaming because it's getting close to the night. Actually, yeah, we might wrap it there. So any final remarks, Seaton?
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it. It was a good experience. It was nice listening to the chat and answering any questions anyone has. Always happy to help out.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's great to have you on. So I'm just trying to work out who to raid. But do you actually watch anyone else besides me on Twitch, Melodic? Now I'm going to call you Melodic instead of Seaton now.
Not in particular.
Okay.
I don't think anyone that I watch.
Oh, good. Or no one you want to admit that you watch. Okay. All good. Well, let's support an Australian streamer. I mean, his name is called Adam from AUS. So you like Overwatch, don't you? You said that, and I like Overwatch, and hopefully some other people like Overwatch. And it's going to be the weirdest raid because he's going to be like, who the heck is this guy raiding him? But he's an Overwatch player. I think and he's Australian, so I think he went over to NA, and then things happened, and maybe he's back in Australia. But he's a good Overwatch player, so yeah. I have a feeling I once played with Adam on ranked back in those days, yeah, because when I was in high or mid masters, there's some games where I was queued up with top 500. so I remember being, he didn't blame me, but I remember being criticized by a top 500 going, oh, yeah, Anna, you should have done this by now. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. But anyway, cool. So thanks everybody. We'll get the raid going, and yeah, see you guys another time. I might pop in Genshin off stream or something at the end. Yeah, Trash, yeah, he got the short end of the deal. I think he got bounced around a few different organizations as they changed management, which was annoying. But yeah, enjoy some Overwatch. Tell him that some Australians are giving him some love. I'm not sure if he will respond to a bunch of physios. He might not know what it is. But if he does, then who knows? Maybe he wants to be consulted by me one day. Then that would be interesting. Cool. All right. Well, take care, everybody. See you next time.